Welcome back to another episode of Thriving by Nature. And really, I am so glad that you're here. So today I want to take you somewhere a little different. We are going back about 2,500 years to a teacher, a tradition that understood something about the human mind that we are still catching up on modern psychology. And I want to bring you all the way forward into your life today. I want to talk about your leadership, your relationships, your business, your patterns, and really focus on the patterns that keep coming up and the ones that we keep just bumping up against and wondering why will they not change. We're going to be talking about the 12 steps of liberation. This is actually a framework that is rooted in Buddhism philosophy. I am not a Buddhist. I am religious though. And I first came across this when I was doing my Montessori certification. And Buddha himself maps out exactly how human beings move. And I love studying about other cultures and other religions because there's a beauty in all of it. And what Buddha did with this beautiful map that he created, he was mapping out exactly how human beings move from being driven by unconscious patterns all the way to genuine wisdom and deliberate living. So this is not a religious conversation. So if you have a faith background, it will likely actually deepen it. This is a deeply human conversation about how we think, how we feel, how we act, and how we can stop being defined by the old stories that keep playing repeat on our minds. So let's go ahead and get back into this. Now, I'm just going to tell a story, and this is what, when I would teach children, this is what would be called a social story. Even though this is a story that we can all see ourselves in, and I actually have lived this too, but this is a social story. So once upon a time, there was a woman. She is smart, she is driven, and by most measures, she's actually doing quite well. But she has a pattern that she cannot seem to shake. Every time she gets close to something that she really wants, whether that is a promotion or a relationship or a business goal, something inside her keeps pulling her back. She'll get too busy. She will get distracted. She'll find a reason that it just doesn't work. And then a few months later, she's standing in the same place wondering, well, what happened? So she's reading all the books. She's setting the goals. She has all of her affirmations, and still she's in this loop. So what she does not yet understand is that this loop is not a character flaw. It is a pattern that is deeply grooved, neurologically reinforced, and it's something that you cannot think your way out of. It's a pattern that she has not learned to see yet. And this is where the 12 steps of liberation are at the core. This is actually a map for learning to see. From the very first flicker of awareness all the way through the kind of freedom that comes when you no longer have to run around by what you have not examined. So let me go ahead and walk you through these. So here's the 12 steps, and we'll go slowly. So step 1 is knowledge. This is the beginning. Something shifts. Maybe you read a book, or you hear a podcast, or you have a conversation that opens a door that you did not know that was there. Knowledge is the first light. And it does not change you yet, but it kind of orients you. So the second step is understanding. Knowledge enters the head, and understanding begins to enter into the heart. And this is when you don't just know something intellectually, but you start to feel why it matters. You understand not just what the pattern is, but what this pattern is starting to cost you. Then you have the third step. And step 3 is observation. This is where real work begins. I would teach classes on observation. Real work begins in observation. You start to watch yourself. And when you are truly observing, you do not watch yourself with judgment. You watch yourself with curiosity. You notice what patterns show up. You catch yourself mid-loop. And instead of being swept away by it, you become the one to observe it. In Montessori, we actually call this the prepared observer, the adult who watches before intervening. You are learning to be that observer in your own life. And it's very crucial that we are able to do this. So we have step 4, and that is your experience. Observation without experience stays theoretical. At that stage, you actually begin to sit inside the discomfort instead of running from it. You actually let yourself start feeling what that pattern feels like in the body and what it feels like to stay present with it instead of collapsing into it or numbing it. Experience is where the nervous system starts to learn something new. Okay, so if you're writing these down, we're on step 5. And step 5 is the attention. Attention to the refinement of observation. It is the practice of bringing your awareness back again and again. And this is what actually happens in this moment when you realize it. Research in neuroscience, it actually confirms that when Buddha taught this, attention literally reshapes the brain. So where attention goes, the neural pathways will follow. So you are, in the most literal biological sense, rewriting yourself when you pay attention. Then you're paying attention. So step 6 must be focus. Attention is broad awareness, and focus is directed. It is intentional attention. And at this stage, you are learning to aim your mind, not to force it, but to guide it. This is where meditation, intentional journaling, prayer, deep reflective work happens. You're not just noticing anymore, you are choosing where to look. So what would step 7 be? Because these all just feed into each other so beautifully. Step 7 is thinking. Now, your thought becomes a tool rather than a tyrant. Most of us have been at the mercy of our own thoughts, and we're not always nice to ourselves. We believe every one of them, reacting to some of them or all of them. And it's at this step that you should actually begin to hold your thoughts more lightly, because then you can question them. You can ask them whether they are true, whether these thoughts are actually serving you, or whether they belong to you or someone who handed them to you along the way, because that happens. People have said things to us along our journey, and sometimes we hold on to those and they're not serving us, and they were never ours to begin with. They were given to us and we do not need to take them. Okay, then we have step 8. So step 8 is actually thought itself. So this is actually really cool because Buddha tradition, it actually distinguishes from the act of thinking. This is thought and thinking are different. This is the quality and the content of the thoughts that are now arising. So as you do the inner work, the thoughts themselves actually begin to change, not because you're forcing them, but because the soil of your mind has now prepared them differently. Okay, so then we have step 9, and that one is, oh, I love this one, your emotions. Emotions, when knowledge, understanding, observation, experience, attention, focus, thinking, your thoughts, your inner dialogue, they've all now have been engaged. Your emotional body will begin to shift. You're no longer at the mercy of the emotions that will erupt without warning. You actually begin to have emotions and understand them and know that they're signals. You feel what you feel, and you are also not afraid to feel it. Hope that makes sense. Sometimes we're afraid to feel the emotion, so we'll try to numb it. And we're not using that emotion as feedback for us to tell us what we actually need to do. Because that's really important to understand to do, because step 11 is the action. And this is where everything, oh, step 10. Sorry, step 10. I was counting wrong. Step 10 is actually action. So this is where everything interior becomes visible to the outside world, because now your actions are beginning to reflect your values rather than the fears. And your choices actually come from a place of groundedness rather than a reaction. You stop performing and you start aligning. And then step 11, yes, is energy. But it's not just the physical energy, it's the quality of your presence. It's what you bring into a room or into a relationship or into your work. When you have walked even partway through this path, people feel it. And that energy is the foundation of every sustainable result that you want in your life and your leadership. And that is a gift. And step 12 is the wisdom. It is the wisdom that comes from more information. It is the liberation, because this is the 12 steps of liberation. And from that deep self-knowledge, you are no longer defined from your old patterns. You are the one who sees them, who understands them, and you choose something different. So there's a lot of science behind this. And I think it's so crazy that Buddha actually mapped this out 2,500 years ago, because now neuroscience is literally confirming this in laboratories. There was a study that I found from a doctor at UCLA. His name is Dr. Daniel Siegel, and he is actually one of the leading researchers in interpersonal neurobiology. Well, the cool thing about him is that he actually talks about the concepts of mind sight, and that is the ability to see your own mind clearly and to understand the minds of others. He says that the development of mind sight, which maps almost precisely into 12-step path, crazy, is the foundation of emotional health, resilience, and also meaningful relationships. Crazy that all of this is just coming together. Something that I love and why I love researching history and now is because ancient wisdom and modern science are telling the same story. The path from pattern to freedom is walked literally from the inside out. In Montessori philosophy and education, we talk endlessly about the prepared environment and the physical space that supports growth. But Maria Montessori also spoke about the prepared adult, and she meant something very specific by that. She did not just mean by having a trained teacher. She meant a human being who had done inner work to be fully present without projecting their own unexamined patterns onto the environment or onto other people. I love, like, if I could go back in time and meet somebody, I would definitely be Marie Montessori, not just because I've been a Montessori educator forever, but because she really understood this. She understood that you cannot model emotional freedom for, well, a child, or even a colleague or a client or a loved one, if you yourself are still running on automatic. You cannot lead from your values if you have not even yet examined what your values actually are. And the 12 steps of liberation are, in the deepest sense, the work of the prepared environment, or making the inside of your life as intentional and supportive as the outside. It all starts with you. So I always like to do my podcast and leave you with three things. Well, sometimes more, but I like to do three. So the three things I want you to carry with you after reading this or listening to this, whatever you're going to do, transcribe, fine. I want you to think about those 12 steps. And I want you to ask yourself honestly, where am I? Are you in the knowledge stage right now, just taking in all this information and not sure what to do with it yet? Are you in the observation stage, trying to catch the patterns that you have and but still being swept away by them? Or are you even closer to maybe an action where you're fighting the gap between what you know and what you're doing? Here's the thing, there's no wrong answers. Knowing where you are is the beginning of moving forward. So, number two, I want you to pick one thing. If you're in the knowledge stage, commit to that conversation. One book, one episode, something that helps you to grow your understanding. If you are in the observation stage, try sitting down and observing, simply watching your thoughts and not reacting to them. If you are in the inner dialogue stage, try speaking to yourself by name and notice if that changes. It's kind of crazy when we actually start saying our name because it gives us more direction when we speak. And I think that number three needs to be patience. You need to be patient with yourself when you're in the loop, when you're in the spiral, because this path is not linear. You will move through these steps and then life will hand you something hard and something new. And it will feel like you're right back at the beginning, but you're not. You're actually spiraling upwards. You are returning to those same themes, but now you have a higher vantage point. Because every time you choose action over reaction or awareness over reaction, or even if you pause before you respond, every time you're able to catch an old pattern, name it, and be better than you were before. 2,500 years ago, you guys, a man sat under a tree and he mapped out from suffering to freedom, to liberation. Not the absence of the difficulty, not a life without having challenge, but kind of freedom that comes when you are no longer a prisoner to your unexamined mind. That path is still there. That path really has always been there. And every single step of it is available right now because we are not our patterns. You are the awareness that can see them. And from the awareness, everything can change. I love this so much. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And if you feel yourself stuck in this pattern and you need support, or if this episode opened up something in you and you want to keep this conversation going, come over to thrivingbynature.com and you can book a free leadership clarity call with me. We can actually look at those patterns together and see what is showing up in your leadership or business and start mapping a path forward that actually fits who you are. And if you're a business owner or a leader who is ready to do the work, I actually do a 5 domains business reset. And it is quick and easy and effective because sometimes we just need somebody to just look at it, observe it from a different perspective, and put us back on that path. And that's what I've created. So you can find me on Instagram and all across socials. And if this episode spoke to someone you love, please share it. And the most powerful thing that we really can do is reach out to each other, hand someone a map if they're feeling lost. So I want to thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.